topic tonight is vampires and werewolves. Are they real or fake? The speaker was a voodoo high priest, Wiccan high priest, second-degree member of Church of Satan, New Age guru, occultist, channeler, 90th-degree Mason, a member of the Knight Templar, Vampire Initiative, and member of the Illuminati.
As you probably all know, I was involved with witchcraft, Mormonism, Masonry, Satanism, etc., etc. The guy that initiated me and made me a Gnostic Catholic bishop was a were-tarantula.
Once in a while, these ghosts would have knife fights in the kitchen.
And he drank from my neck, he gashed open his chest, blood poured out, and I drank from his chest. You know, would you really want Yeshua, Jesus, sitting there in the theater next to you when you're watching the Twilight movies? Would you feel comfortable with that? Because he is there. I'm sure you've all heard of, you know, Transylvania. This is Transylvania, and Transylvania is not England, you know. This picture, I'm going back one here, looks very much like a real werewolf. And I've seen a real werewolf. And we would actually call upon Vlad Tepes as kind of a dark Christ figure. And then we have a new innovation in 1871 by a guy named Sheridan Le Fanu. There is a novel, Carmilla, which is about, you ready for this, a lesbian vampire. And then she says, I went and met this guy who was into blood drinking. We started drinking, and I felt wonderful. Now I feel great. We just drink each other's blood every day, and I feel great. You know, this is like a variation on the I'm born homosexual line that the homosexuals use. And if you do something God says you shouldn't do, then you're going to open up a door. This is how it works. Just like if you go out and you commit fornication or adultery, you're opening up a doorway. Well, similarly, if you drink someone else's blood, you're getting all the evil spirits that are in their soul. And part of the transformation was that my saliva became full of a cocaine-like substance, just like a vampire bat. So I could lick their necks, it would anesthetize them against the pain, then my fangs would literally grow with arousal from smelling their blood, which I could smell from across the room. Because remember, Paul tells us that the gods of the heathen are demons. So whether that god is Allah, or whether that god is Lilith, or whether it's Molech or whatever, these are demonic powers. These are demonic strongholds. Demons are the ultimate venereal disease. At this point, there is a fork you have to take in the road in this particular flavor of Satanism that I was in. One way is to become a vampire, one way is to become a werewolf. I chose the way to become a vampire because I thought it was sexier somehow, and I'd heard that becoming a werewolf was extremely painful. See, angels are tempted by human female beauty. They find you ladies incredibly attractive. And in order for them to be able, because normally angels are asexual beings, I think we know that. But in order to be able to function sexually, they have to drink human blood.
Did the demon just appear like as a ghost in the room? Or
no,
what?
It was like this big sort of slimy, tentacle, you know, amorphous, really not easy to describe, you know, very, very pustulant and tentacles and slithery and, you know.
I don't know if you've heard of the word shaman. It's very trendy right now if you're into the New Age movement. So let's say, for example, I set up the god Bill. And there's this Bill up here, and he's like, we have this little statue, and we all worship Bill. Okay? After a while, this thought form, Bill, starts acquiring energy of its own. And ultimately, it gets enough energy that demons come and live in it. Or a strong man will come and live in it. Now, Lilith, you may have heard that name. She today is kind of like an icon among feminists, especially feminist Jews. Are werewolves real? Now, this might, you know, bake your noodle a little, but yes, they are real. Though the underdog, pardon the pun, in the monster hierarchy, there is actually more evidence for werewolves existing exactly as they are seen in Hollywood movies. And he's driving out, and this lady's standing there, and he said, literally, in the blink of an eye, 1 minute she was there, like that, there was this giant raven standing there. And she was gone. That fast. and then the raven flew away. Now, that's called a skinwalker. That's what Native Americans call it. They can turn into wolves, they can turn into coyotes, they can turn into various other animals. But I was told by colleagues in the Brotherhood of Satan that when you see the transformation in the movie The Howling, which is sort of like about 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the movie, of this one character who actually turns into a werewolf on camera, that it's actually a real guy turning into a werewolf because they couldn't get the makeup ready in time. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Iko, Azarak, Iko, Zomalak. You don't want to know how you become a werewolf. It's not fit for innocent ears, but it's so horrifying and depraved, I don't even want to go into it. And they looked out the living room window, and there it was, looking at them back. And this is from a second-story window. And it was a werewolf, just like you saw in that picture. It was like, 7 or 8 feet tall, big, looks like, Arnold Schwarzenegger with steroids and fur. And just the growl shook the house. And they were praying, and they were pleading the blood. This thing could not cross the blood. It could not, even though the house was totally defenseless in the natural, it could not cross the blood of the lamb.
There's what's called a great old one who's called a Thakwa, or the Windwalker, the Wendigo. And I believe that I was blessed with having a visit from him that night.
He said, okay. And so the first thing these guys do is we command you in the name of Jesus, any demon that's inside of you to manifest. Big no-no. Major no-no. Well, anyhow, this guy goes, and he starts turning into a werewolf, like literally in 60 seconds. He hulks out. And all of a sudden, there's this 8-foot werewolf standing in this woman's living room. And I'll tell you, it was getting harder and harder for me to not, if I'd drive along, I'd see an occasional prostitute or an occasional street person or something out in the wee hours in the morning, not just leap out of the car and rip their throat out. Because I wasn't getting enough blood. The inner order that I was a member of the Church of Satan as a second-degree warlock was called the Order of the Trapezoid. That's why haunted houses are typically with mansard roofs, like the Addams family house. Those are called mansard roofs. Perfect place for demons to come in. Trapezoids attract demons. Chicago is a profoundly evil city. And then I laid in a coffin that I had specially built. I was not a full-blown vampire. As I mentioned earlier, that would not happen until I finally died. But I could not drink anything but blood. I could not eat anything but Holy Communion from a Catholic Mass. And so these 2 kids, one of whom we had sitting in front of us, were bicycling around after dark in this landfill, which wasn't a real smart thing to be doing, but you know how kids are. And anyway, they came upon this circle, and there were these people in black robes, and they were sacrificing something. They couldn't tell what it was, which is probably just as well. And they totally freaked. We got, black robes, flames, the whole bit. It was obviously something they'd seen enough TV and, this is something satanic, And so they both hightailed it. They had those little bikes that kids, I don't know if they still have them or not, but with the banana seats and all that. And all of a sudden, this kid said they heard something go boom, 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 coming behind them. And he looked around, and all he could see was this giant shape that was just towering over them with red, glaring eyes. And it was the strides this thing was taking were enormous. And this kid was in the lead, and his friend was behind him. And it was boom, boom. And, the ground was literally shaking under this thing. And all of a sudden, he heard his little friend go, "Ah!" like that, And he looked back, and his friend wasn't there anymore. And this thing was still coming, boom, boom, boom. And the kid said that this giant hand, 5-fingered hand with talons on it that just wouldn't quit, came around and grabbed him by the chest. And he says, "Oh, Jesus!" And just like that, the thing like he was scalded.